Kim Dae-ho woke up in darkness. His head hurt badly and his mouth tasted like blood. The young soldier tried to move, but thick chains held his arms behind his back. He was sitting on cold metal in what looked like a prison cell. Strange alien writing covered the walls and everything smelled wrong. 3 days ago, Kim Dae-ho had been leading a small team on planet Kepler 442b. They were supposed to watch the enemy and report back to human command. Nobody expected the Vorthan soldiers to find them. So fast the lizard-like aliens had jumped them during the night. Most of his team got killed in the fight. Kim Dae-ho only lived because they wanted a prisoner. The Vorthans were big, scary creatures that walked on 2 legs like humans but had 4 arms and teeth like sharks. Their skin was covered in green scales and their eyes were yellow like a cat's. They had been fighting humans for 2 years now, taking over planets and killing anyone who fought back. The Vorthans thought they were better than every other species in the galaxy, Commander. Vextar was the worst of them all. He had scars all over his face from old battles and was missing scales where enemy weapons had hit him. The alien commander loved to hurt prisoners and make videos of it. He thought fear was the best weapon and wanted everyone in the galaxy to be scared of Vorthan's Kim. Dae-ho heard footsteps coming down the hallway, heavy boots on metal floors getting closer and closer. The cell door opened with a loud bang, and bright lights hurt his eyes. Vorthan soldiers grabbed him and dragged him up some stairs. His legs were too weak to walk properly after 3 days of no food. They brought him outside to a big open area in the middle of the city. Thousands of Vorthans were standing around cheering and making angry sounds. Kim Dae-ho saw cameras pointing at him and knew this was bad. The aliens were going to make a show of killing him and broadcast it across the galaxy. A wooden platform stood in the center of the square with a rope hanging from a tall post. Kim Dae-ho felt cold fear in his stomach but tried not to show it. His father had always told him that a soldier should die with honor, even when everything seemed hopeless. The young man thought about his family back on Earth and hoped they would understand. Commander Vextar climbed onto the platform wearing his best military uniform. All his medals and ribbons were polished and shining. The alien commander spoke into a microphone so everyone could hear him. He talked about Vorthan's strength and human weakness. His voice was loud and harsh like grinding metal. The broadcast went live at exactly 2:00 Galactic time. Billions of creatures across hundreds of worlds could watch what happened. Next, Vextar wanted everyone to see how Vorthans treated their enemies. He thought killing a human soldier on camera would make other species surrender without fighting. Kim Dae-ho was forced to walk up the steps to the platform. His uniform was torn and dirty, but he kept his back straight like his training had taught him. The rope felt rough around his neck and smelled like old leather. He looked directly into the main camera and saw his own face on the big screens around the square. The alien crowd was getting louder and more excited. They wanted to see blood and death. Many of them had never seen a human before and thought Kim Dae-ho looked weak and small compared to their own warriors. They did not understand that humans could be dangerous when they got angry enough. Kim Dae-ho thought about his older sister Ji-won, who was a famous scientist on Earth. She was the smartest person he knew and had always protected him when they were children. He also thought about his father, who was an important admiral in the human space navy. His family would be watching this broadcast and he wanted to make them proud. When they asked if he had any last words, Kim Dae-ho spoke clearly in the standard galactic language so everyone could understand. He said that humanity would remember this day forever. He told the Vorthans they had just made the biggest mistake in their species' history. His voice was calm and strong even though he was about to die. The alien crowd laughed at his words. They thought he was just trying to sound brave before death. Commander Vextar smiled, showing all his sharp teeth. He thought the human was weak and stupid. The Vorthans had conquered many worlds and killed millions of enemies. Nothing bad had ever happened to them for being cruel. Kim Dae-ho closed his eyes and thought about home. He remembered playing in the Gardens of Seoul with his sister when they were young. He thought about his father's strong hands teaching him how to be a soldier. He remembered his mother's cooking and the way she hugged him before he left for this mission. The rope tightened around his neck and Kim Dae-ho felt himself being lifted off the platform. His feet kicked in the air for a few seconds, and then everything went dark. The alien crowd cheered louder than ever before. Commander Vextar raised his forearms in victory, thinking he had won a great battle against humanity. The cameras kept rolling for several more minutes, showing Kim Dae-ho's body hanging. From the rope, Vorthon soldiers danced around the platform, celebrating their victory. The broadcast was sent to every corner of the galaxy, including Earth, where the young soldier's family was watching in horror. What the Vorthans did not know was that Kim Dae-ho was not just any regular soldier. His father, Admiral Kim Sung-min, was one of the most important military leaders in human space. His sister, Dr. Kim Ji-won, was the scientist who had discovered how to make stars explode. The Vorthans had just killed someone very important to very dangerous people. On Earth, the emergency alarm started ringing in government buildings within minutes of the broadcast ending. Military leaders gathered in secret rooms to watch the video over and over again. Each time they saw Kim Dae-ho's death, their anger grew stronger and hotter than the core of a star. General Park Min-ho was the supreme commander of all human military forces. He was a hard man who had fought in many wars, but watching Kim Dae-ho's execution made him feel something he had never felt before. It was not just anger or sadness, but something much more dangerous. It was the need for complete revenge. The general made a phone call that would change everything. He spoke. Just 4 words: Project Prometheus is approved. These words would soon bring death to billions of Vorthans and change how the galaxy thought about humanity forever. The sleeping giant had been awakened, and it was very, very angry. Dr. Kim Ji-won was working late in her laboratory when her assistant burst through the door. The young man was crying and could barely speak. He held up a tablet showing the news broadcast from Vorthon space. Ji-won saw her little brother hanging from a rope, while alien monsters cheered around him. The tablet fell from her hands and crashed on the floor. Ji-won felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. She could not breathe properly and her legs felt weak. Dae-ho was supposed to be safe on a simple mission. He was not supposed to die like this in front of the whole galaxy. Ji-won was 32 years old and the smartest scientist on Earth. She had discovered amazing things about space and stars that no one else understood. Her work could make stars bigger or smaller, or even make them explode. But she had always used her knowledge to help people, not hurt them. The military officers arrived at her laboratory within an hour. General Park Min-ho came with them wearing his full-dress uniform. His face looked like it was made of stone, but his eyes were burning with anger. He did not need to say why he was there. Ji-won already knew what they wanted. They wanted her to turn her peaceful science into a weapon of war. Her research about stellar collapse could destroy entire star systems if she made it into a bomb. General Park showed her classified files about Project Prometheus. The military had been planning this weapon for years but never built it. Ji-won had always said no when they asked her to make weapons. She believed science should help people live better lives, not kill them. But now her baby brother was dead. The Vorthans had murdered him on live television to scare everyone in the galaxy. Felt her peaceful beliefs crumbling like old paper. The general played the execution video again on a big screen. Ji-won watched her brother die over and over until she could not take it anymore. She screamed and threw books at the wall. Her assistants tried to calm her down, but she pushed them away. The pain in her heart was too strong for anyone to help. General Park waited until she stopped crying. Then he spoke in a quiet voice. He told her that the Vorthans thought humans were weak. He said they believed humans would negotiate and make peace after seeing one soldier die. The aliens did not understand what they had really done. The Vorthans had studied human history but only looked at the peaceful parts. They read about diplomats and peace treaties. They learned about human art and music and love stories, but they never studied the dark side of human nature. They never learned what humans did when someone hurt their family. General Park showed Ji-won intelligence reports about Vorthan society. The lizard aliens lived in 13 star systems with billions of people on each world. They had a strong military, but their science was not as good as human science. They had never learned how to control stars like humans could. The Vorthans thought they were the strongest species in the galaxy because they had conquered many worlds. But they had never fought humans who were really angry. They had never seen what humans could do when they stopped caring about being nice and started thinking about revenge. Ji-won looked at pictures of her brother when he was a little boy. She remembered teaching him about stars and planets when he was 10 years old. He had asked her if she could ever make a star explode. She had laughed. and said that would be terrible because it would kill everyone nearby. Now she was thinking about making 13 stars explode all at the same time. She was thinking about killing every single Vorthon in the galaxy to pay for her brother's death. The idea should have scared her, but instead it felt right. It felt like justice. General Park told her about the emergency meeting of the Human Defense Council. Representatives from every human world had voted to approve total retaliation against the Vorthon Empire. Not one person had said they should try to make peace. Everyone wanted complete revenge. The general showed her video messages from human colonies across the galaxy. Millions of people were demanding war. They were calling Deho a hero and martyr. Some were even volunteering to die if it meant destroying the Vorthons. His death had awakened something primitive and terrible in human psychology. Ji-won walked to her computer and began pulling up her research files. Her hands were shaking as she opened the classified documents about stellar collapse. She had spent 10 years learning how to safely control the nuclear reactions inside stars. Now she would use that knowledge to kill worlds. Her stellar collapse theory was based on quantum mechanics and nuclear physics. By introducing special particles into a star's core, she could make it unstable. The star would grow bigger and bigger until it exploded in a supernova. Everything within several light years would be destroyed instantly. The military had already chosen their targets. All 13 Vorthon star systems would be hit at the same time, so none of them could escape. The timing had to be perfect, because once the first star started dying, the aliens would know what was happening. They might try to run away or fight back. Ji-won began converting her peaceful research into weapons of mass destruction. Each stellar collapse device would be small enough to fit in a briefcase, but powerful enough to kill billions of people. She worked through the night programming the quantum equations that would bring death to entire worlds. As the sun rose over Earth, Ji-won finished her terrible work. She had created the most deadly weapon in galactic history. 13 small devices that could end the Vorthon species forever. She thought about her brother and whispered a promise that his death would be avenged. The Vorthons had wanted to show the galaxy how strong and cruel they were. Instead, they had awakened humanity's capacity for absolute revenge. They had poked a sleeping giant that preferred peace but was capable of total war. When humans finally got angry, they did not just fight back. They eliminated the problem completely. Captain Lee Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of his stealth ship, Soul's Fury, looking at the secret orders that had just arrived. The message was short but contained the most shocking military command in human history. He was ordered to destroy any entire star system and kill every living thing in it. Lee Hyun-woo was 35 years old and had been fighting in space for 15 years. He had seen terrible battles and done dangerous missions, but nothing like this. His ship was one of the most advanced vessels in the human fleet, with cloaking technology that made it invisible to enemy sensors. His crew of 12 had been chosen carefully for their loyalty and their ability to keep secrets. They were all volunteers who had watched Kim Dae-ho die on the broadcast. Every one of them had asked to be part of the revenge mission, even though they knew it would make them either heroes or war criminals. The Soul's Fury was specially designed for missions that could never be officially admitted. The ship could travel faster than light without being detected and carry weapons that were too dangerous for normal military use. Now it would carry something even more deadly than nuclear bombs. Kim Ji-won arrived at the secret military base on the moon with her stellar collapse devices. Each weapon was stored in a metal briefcase that looked completely ordinary. Nobody would guess that each case contained enough destructive power to kill billions of people and destroy entire planets. Major Choi Soo-jin was in charge of coordinating the attack. She was a smart woman who had planned many successful military operations. But this mission was different from anything she had ever done before. They were not just attacking enemy soldiers, they were eliminating an entire species. The Major showed the strike team leaders a map of Vorthon space with all 13 star systems marked in red. Each system contained millions of Vorthon civilians, including children and families who had nothing to do with Kim Dae-ho's execution. But the human leadership had decided that all Vorthons must pay the price. The timing had to be perfect, because once the first star began to collapse, the Vorthons would realize what was happening. They might try to evacuate their people or launch their own attacks against human worlds. The entire operation had to happen at exactly the same moment across hundreds of light years. Captain Lee looked at his target assignment. He would attack the Vorthon, homeworld system where their government and military headquarters were located. The star was a massive blue giant that provided energy for 6 heavily populated planets, including the world where Commander Vextar lived. Each strike team would jump to hyperspace at the same time and emerge at the edge of their target systems. The stealth ships would approach the stars while staying invisible to Vorthon sensors. Then they would release the stellar collapse devices and escape before the supernovas. Dr. Kim Ji-won worked with desperate intensity to prepare her weapons. She had not slept since watching her brother die, and her eyes were red from crying and exhaustion. But her hands were steady as she programmed the quantum devices that would bring such terrible revenge. The stellar collapse process would take exactly 43 minutes from activation to supernova. This gave the human ships just enough time to escape to minimum safe distance before the stars exploded. The timing had been calculated to the second based on advanced computer models. All across human space, the military was preparing for the largest operation in their history. Thousands of soldiers and scientists worked together to support the 13 strike teams. Fuel depots and communication stations were positioned to help the mission succeed. The human government had declared a state of total war against the Vorthon Empire. Every resource was dedicated to the revenge mission factories that normally made peaceful products were now building weapons and military supplies. The entire human civilization was focused on one goal: General Park. Min Ho reviewed the final plans one last time in his command bunker deep under the earth. He thought about Kim, Dae-ho, and the young soldier's final words. The Vorthons had indeed made the biggest mistake in their history. They had shown humans what total war really meant. The strike teams received their final briefings about the mission. Each captain was reminded that they were not just attacking military targets. They were ending an entire civilization to send a message to the galaxy about what happened when someone murdered a human soldier on television. Captain Lee gathered his crew in the Soul's Furies main room. He looked at each of their faces and saw the same determination he felt in his own heart. They all understood that this mission would change them forever. They would either die in the attempt or live as the people who had killed billions. Quantum weapons were loaded into special containers in each ship's cargo bay. Dr. Kim Ji-won personally checked every device to make sure it would work perfectly. She thought about all the Vorthon children who would die and felt no guilt or sadness, only cold satisfaction that justice would be served. As the strike teams prepared for launch, messages of support came from human colonies across the galaxy. Millions of people were praying for the mission's success. They wanted the Vorthons to pay for their cruelty and learn that humans could not be terrorized without consequences. The final countdown began with T-minus 60 minutes until launch. Captain Lee sat in his command chair and thought about the magnitude of what they were about to do. In 1 hour, 13 human ships would begin the journey to destroy an entire species. It was the most terrible and necessary mission in human history. At T-minus 30 minutes, Dr. Kim Ji-won made her final adjustments to the stellar collapse devices. She whispered her brother's name as she activated the arming sequences. The weapons were now ready to turn 13 stars into supernovas and end the Vorthon threat forever. The humans had been patient and peaceful for many years, trying to get along with other species in the galaxy. But the Vorthons had pushed them too far by executing Kim Dae-ho on live television. Now they would learn what humans were truly capable of when someone they loved was murdered. At exactly 7 o'clock Galactic time, 13 human stealth ships jumped out of hyperspace at the edges of Vorthon star systems. Captain Lee Hyun-woo felt his stomach drop as the Soul's Fury emerged from the swirling colors of hyperspace into normal space. The Vorthon home system spread out before him like a deadly target. Each ship carried death in a small metal briefcase. The stellar collapse devices that Dr. Kim Ji-won had built were no bigger than a lunchbox, but contained enough power to destroy everything within several light years. The crews knew they were about to commit the largest act of mass murder in galactic history. Captain Lee looked at the massive blue star that provided light and heat to 6 Vorthon worlds. Billions of lizard-like aliens lived on those planets, going about their daily lives. They had no idea that a human ship was approaching their sun with a weapon that would kill them all in less than an hour. The Soul's Fury moved silently through space using its advanced cloaking technology to stay invisible. The Vorthan defense systems were sophisticated, but they were designed to detect normal military threats like missiles and battle fleets. They could not see a single small ship that bent light around itself. Lee thought about the innocent Vorthan civilians who were about to die. He imagined alien children playing in their homes while their parents worked at normal jobs. Most of these people had probably never heard of Kim Dae-ho and did not support their government's decision to execute him on television. For a moment the captain hesitated. His finger hovered over the weapons activation button. He could still turn around and go home without completing the mission. But then, he remembered, watching Kim Dae-ho die while alien monsters cheered around his hanging body. The moment of doubt passed quickly. All 13 human ships were moving toward their targets at the same time. Across hundreds of light years, the other captains were having similar thoughts about what they were going to do. But none of them changed their minds. They had all volunteered for this mission after seeing the execution broadcast. The Vorthan military had bases and sensor stations throughout their territory, but they were not watching for attacks on their stars. The idea of using a sun as a weapon was beyond their understanding. Their science had never advanced far enough to control stellar nuclear reactions. Commander Vexitar was in his office on the Vorthan capital world reviewing reports about the successful execution broadcast. He was proud of how the event had terrorized other species and demonstrated Vorthan superiority. The alien commander expected humans to surrender or ask for peace. Negotiations. Captain Lee's ship reached the outer edge of the blue giant star. The temperature outside was thousands of degrees, but the Soul's Fury had special shielding that protected it from the heat. The captain looked at his crew and saw the same grim determination on every face. The stellar collapse device was loaded into a special torpedo tube that would fire it directly into the star's core. The quantum particles inside the weapon would disrupt the nuclear fusion process and cause the entire star to become unstable within 43 minutes. Lee pressed the firing button and felt the ship vibrate slightly as the torpedo launched toward the star. The weapon disappeared into the burning plasma, but its quantum payload was already beginning to work deep inside the stars. Core fundamental forces were being thrown out of balance. Across Vorthan space, identical scenes were playing out as 12 other human ships delivered their deadly cargo. Each captain watched their torpedo disappear into a foreign sun, knowing they had just triggered the death of an entire civilization. The weapons were small, but their effects would be enormous. The human ships immediately began retreating to minimum safe distance. The stellar collapses would create massive explosions that could destroy anything within several light years. Even at maximum speed, the stealth ships barely had enough time to escape before the supernovas began. On the Vorthan worlds, people continued their normal lives, unaware that their suns were already dying. Solar observatories detected strange quantum readings from their stars, but the scientists could not understand what the unusual signals meant. Their technology was simply not advanced enough. Dr. Kim Ji-won monitored the attacks from the human command center on the moon. She watched as sensor readings confirmed that all 13 weapons had been successfully deployed. Her quantum devices were working exactly as designed, spreading through the stellar cores like a deadly infection. The first signs of instability appeared in the stars after 30 minutes. The nuclear fusion reactions that had powered them for billions of years began to fail as the quantum particles disrupted their atomic structure. The stars started to expand as their internal pressure systems collapsed. Commander Vexitar was still celebrating the successful execution when his science advisors burst into his office with emergency reports. Solar observatories across the Vorthan Empire were detecting massive quantum anomalies in all of their home stars. The readings made no sense according to Vorthan physics. Dr. Korthak was the chief scientist of the Vorthan Empire and the first alien to understand what the quantum signatures meant. He had studied human technology and recognized the patterns of artificial stellar collapse. His urgent message to the military command was simple and terrifying. The human had turned their stars into bombs, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Evacuation of 13 star systems containing billions of people was impossible in the few minutes remaining, before the stellar collapses reached critical mass. The Vorthan Empire was about to be completely destroyed. Panic spread through Vorthon command centers as the implications became clear. Their advanced military technology and superior numbers meant nothing when faced with weapons that attacked the very stars themselves. The humans had found a way to fight that made conventional warfare obsolete. Vexstar stared at the countdown displays showing time remaining until the first supernova. He finally understood what Kim Dae-ho had meant with his final words. The young human soldier had known that his death would trigger something terrible. The Vorthans had indeed made the biggest mistake in their history. Emergency broadcasts began on Vorthan worlds as governments tried to warn their populations, but there was nowhere to run. The stars themselves were the weapons, and when they exploded, everything in the system would be vaporized instantly. Death would come at the speed of light. The first star reached critical mass at exactly 43 minutes after the human attack. VX7 collapsed into itself and then exploded outward in a brilliant supernova that could be seen from hundreds of light years away. 3 planets and billions of Vorthans were instantly destroyed. The first supernova lit up the darkness of space like a giant bomb made of pure light. Star VX7 exploded with the power of 1 billion nuclear weapons, sending waves of energy and burning gas racing outward at incredible speed. 3 Vorthan worlds disappeared in seconds along with everyone who lived on them. Captain Lee Hyun-woo watched the explosion from his ship's safe distance. The Soul's fury had escaped just in time, and now he could see the terrible beauty of a dying star. The supernova was so bright it hurt to look at even through the ship's protective filters. He had never seen anything so powerful and destructive. Every 30 seconds, another star in Vorthan space began to collapse. Dr. Kim Ji-won had timed the quantum weapons perfectly so. The aliens could only watch helplessly as their entire civilization was destroyed, one system at a time. The stellar explosions followed each other like fireworks in a deadly celebration. On the Vorthon capital world, Commander Vexstar stood at his office window watching their blue sun grow bigger and brighter. The star was swelling up like a balloon being filled with too much air. Soon it would explode and kill every living thing in the system, including Vexstar himself. Emergency broadcasts filled Vorthan communication channels as governments tried to organize evacuations that everyone knew were impossible. Billions of aliens looked up at their changing suns and realized they were about to die. There were not enough spaceships in the entire empire to save even 1% of the population. The Vorthon military tried desperately to find some way to stop the stellar collapses, but their science was not advanced enough to understand what the humans had done. Their best scientists worked frantically to reverse the quantum process, but they might as well have tried to stop time itself. Dr. Kim Ji-won sat in the human command center watching sensor readings from across Vorthan space. Each supernova appeared on her screens as a bright flash followed by expanding clouds of burning gas. Her quantum weapons were working perfectly, eliminating an entire species, just as she had designed them to do. Her colleagues watched her with fear and respect as she calmly tracked the destruction of billions of lives. When someone asked how she felt about causing so much death, she thought about her little brother hanging from that rope. The Vorthons had chosen to make this personal when they executed Dae-ho on live television. The second star to explode was VX-12 in the Outer Territories. The supernova destroyed 4 inhabited planets and dozens of space stations. Another 3 billion Vorthans died instantly as their worlds were turned into clouds of hot gas. The explosion was visible from the neighboring star systems. Commander Vexstar received desperate messages from Vorthon fleets that were outside the home systems when the attacks began. The surviving ship captains begged for orders on how to respond to the human assault. But what orders could he give when the enemy had turned every star into a weapon? The 3rd, 4th, and 5th supernovas followed in quick succession. Each explosion erased another piece of Vorthan civilization from the galaxy. Ancient worlds that had been home to the lizard aliens for thousands of years were reduced to expanding balls of plasma and radiation. News networks across the galaxy struggled to report on what was happening in Vorthon space. The scale of destruction was beyond anything anyone had ever imagined. 13 entire star systems were being systematically destroyed by human forces in retaliation for one soldier's death. Other alien species watched in shocked silence as the Vorthon Empire died before their eyes. Many had considered humans to be a peaceful diplomatic race that preferred negotiation to warfare. Now they realized they had completely misunderstood human psychology when it came to protecting their own people. The Vorthon homestar finally reached critical mass after 43 minutes of instability. The massive blue giant collapsed inward for a moment and then exploded outward with unimaginable force. 6 worlds, including the capital planet, were vaporized along with Commander Vextar, and the entire government. Dr. Kim Ji-won felt a cold satisfaction as she watched the home system die. The alien commander who had ordered her brother's execution was now dead, along with everyone who had cheered while Daeho was hanged. The score was not even close to being settled, but it was a good start. The surviving Vorthon ships that had been outside their home systems during the attack sent desperate communications to human forces. They offered to surrender unconditionally and face trial for war crimes if the humans would stop the stellar bombardment. But it was already too late. General Park Min-ho broadcast humanity's response on all frequencies, so every species in the galaxy could hear what humans thought about the situation. He announced that the Vorthon Empire had been eliminated in direct retaliation for their execution of Staff Sergeant Kim Dae-ho. The general explained that any remaining Vorthons who wished to survive should surrender immediately to human authorities and prepare to face justice for their people's war crimes. The age of Vorthon expansion and brutality was over, and a new era of galactic politics had begun. Within 2 hours, all 13 Vorthon star systems had been destroyed by artificial supernovas. The total death toll was nearly 30 billion aliens, including civilians, soldiers, and government officials. The Vorthon Empire that had terrorized the galaxy for decades no longer existed. The few surviving Vorthons scattered across various outposts, and colonies numbered less than 50 million out of an original population that had been 30 times larger. They were now a broken people, dependent on human mercy for their continued existence. Captain Lee and the other strike team leaders were quietly recalled to Earth, where they would be debriefed and then retired with full honors. Their names would never appear in official records, but military historians would remember them as the people who changed galactic warfare forever. The message to other alien civilizations was clear and unmistakable. Humans could be reasonable partners in galactic affairs, but they should never be pushed beyond certain limits. When humans stopped caring about diplomatic solutions and started thinking about final solutions, entire species could disappear. Kim Dae-ho had become the most important martyr in human history. His death had triggered the complete destruction of humanity's greatest enemy and established new rules for how other species would interact with human colonies. The young Green Beret had been avenged in the most absolute way possible. The galaxy was never the same after what became known as the 5-Hour War. In just 5 hours, humanity had gone from being seen as a peaceful diplomatic species to becoming the most feared military power in known space. The complete destruction of the Vorthon Empire sent shockwaves through every alien civilization. The surviving Vorthon population was scattered across small colonies and outposts that had been outside their home systems during the human attack. Less than 50 million aliens remained out of nearly 30 billion who had lived before the supernovas. Their mighty empire was reduced to refugee camps and surrender negotiations. General Park Min-ho established the Vorthon Rehabilitation Authority to manage the survivors. The remaining lizard aliens were required to undergo extensive education programs designed to eliminate their violent military culture. Many galactic observers noted that humans showed more mercy to survivors than they had shown to Vorthon civilization. Itself, Dr. Kim Ji-won became the most feared scientist in galactic history. Her stellar collapse technology was immediately classified at the highest security levels, and she was appointed director of humanity's new Department of Strategic Deterrence. When alien diplomats met with human representatives, they found themselves talking to the woman who had personally killed billions. The psychological impact of negotiating with someone responsible for such massive destruction proved more effective than any military threat. Other species representatives would sit across from Dr. Kim Ji-won, knowing she could destroy their entire civilization with devices small enough to fit in a briefcase. Staff Sergeant Kim Dae-ho was promoted to full colonel after his death and became the symbol of humanity's willingness to exact terrible revenge for attacks on their people. Monuments honoring his sacrifice were built on every human world, and his final words were carved into the entrance of every military academy. The young Green Beret who had died alone on an alien world had accidentally triggered the most decisive military action in human history. His execution had awakened something dark and powerful in human psychology that other species had never suspected existed. Captain Lee Hyun-woo and the other strike team commanders were quietly retired, with generous pensions and full military honors. Their names never appeared in public records, but classified military histories would remember them as the instruments of cosmic justice who had changed galactic politics forever. The broader galactic community struggled to understand what humanity had done and why they had responded so extremely to what seemed like a single soldier's death. Xenobiology textbooks were hastily rewritten to include warnings about human psychology and the concept of disproportionate revenge species that had previously considered humans as potential conquest targets, quietly abandoned their expansion plans, and began offering defensive alliance treaties instead. The idea of fighting a war against people who would destroy entire star systems in retaliation was too terrifying to consider. The Zephyrian Republic, which had been planning to invade human colonies, immediately withdrew their fleets and sent diplomatic missions offering trade agreements. The Crystalline Hive, which had been testing human defenses in border skirmishes, suddenly became very interested in peace negotiations. Even the powerful Andromedan Federation, which had never shown respect for younger species, began treating human ambassadors with careful politeness. Nobody wanted to accidentally trigger another demonstration of humanity's ultimate weapons. The galaxy had learned to be afraid. Dr. Kim Ji-won continued her work in the Department of Strategic Deterrence, developing even more terrible weapons that she hoped would never need to be used. Her stellar collapse technology had proven that humans could think beyond conventional warfare when their survival or honor was threatened. The quantum weapons were stored in secret facilities across human space, ready to be deployed if any other species made the same mistake the Vorthons had made. The mere knowledge that these weapons existed was enough to keep most potential enemies from testing human patience. Human colonies that had been struggling to defend themselves against alien raids suddenly found their borders completely peaceful. Word spread quickly through criminal organizations and pirate fleets that attacking human settlements was now suicide. The reputation for extreme retaliation protected every human world. The diplomatic corps had to learn new ways of conducting interstellar relations. Every negotiation now took place in the shadow of what had happened to the Vorthons. Alien representatives approached human diplomats with a mixture of respect, fear, and fascination. Ambassador Chen Wei-ming found that his job had become much easier after the 5-hour war treaties that had been stalled for years were suddenly signed within days. Other species were eager to maintain good relationships with humans and avoid any possible misunderstandings. The military academies across human space began teaching new courses on psychological warfare and strategic deterrence. The complete destruction of the Vorthon Empire became the primary example of how to end conflicts permanently, rather than fighting prolonged wars. Young officers studied the execution of Kim Dae-ho and the human response as the perfect example of why certain lines should never be crossed. The lesson was clear.